if gold tops near 5,500, it can probably come back. I'm trying to. It might even do more than 10, but certainly something in the high fours would make sense. So it's not going to get hit as hard as silver by any means in a correction, and then come out of that and probably go to higher highs for both metals.
Mhm. So, David, once we get that, let's say that bust or that in some ways that global reset, does are you optimistic? Does life look something like a good thing after that?
I think we're late in it. What I call a super cycle is a long cycle between two depressions. So the Great Depression of the 1930s and what I think will be an even greater depression in the 20 mid 2030s and beyond.
Mhm.
So if I'm saying that that's what we're headed for, I'm not optimistic about our future 10 years out. I do think there are great opportunities post bust. And what I tell everybody is your fighting chance in what's coming, I think, is to get your financial house in order first going into the bust, make sure you don't ride it all the way back down. Clean up any debt you can, and then come out the other side. And if you invest properly, there's certainly things that are going to be 5 and 10 baggers in stocks, and for even the average investor, you're going to be able to, coming out of the bottom of the bust, you're going to be able to make 3 or 4 times your money in mutual funds or anything, ETFs, I should say. Um, but if you write it down, you're just trying to get your money back. If you've actually protected your capital, there's an opportunity to get your house in order and give you a fighting chance. What I describe in terms of what comes after the recovery cycle that follows the bust is we're going to have, if I'm right, no money for welfare, no money for unemployment, no money or limited, if at all limited. Social Security bankrupt, Medicare very, very limited, if at all. Medicaid. You're just not going to have the support system that everybody's grown up on, and that means everybody's fending for themselves. That's not I can't pretend to envision exactly what that means, but it doesn't speak to me to something that's going to be friendly. I mean, it's there's going to be crime's going to go up big time. Violence probably going to go up big time as people fight for survival. I hope I'm wrong. I hope a lot of what Trump is doing cleans up a lot of the debt, and that somehow the world gets its act together, and we can kick the can down the road for lots more cycles. I just have my doubts.
Mhm. David, is there anything that we haven't covered? Maybe, something on your mind that, let's say, you don't get asked too often. Um,
Yeah, I'll
it,
say that the thing we have not covered is bonds, and I think obviously rates are ticking up here again today. I think we're very close. Bonds are putting in a 2 year bottom. Basically, have been it came down prior to that 2 years, but they were basically been in a very rounding bottom here, kind of flat trading area for a couple of years, tight trading range. I think what we're going to see is we emerge from this on the upside in terms of bonds and on the downside in terms of rates. I think rates during this last, whether it's 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, I don't know, but during this last run in the stock market, I think rates coming down are going to be part of what drives it. So you're going to have lower inflation, lower rates, an economy that is still holding together, maybe more than that based on what we see right now, but at least holding together. No, you're going to hear no recession, et cetera. Um, and that's what I think drives this last move in the stock market. A big part of it will be, I think the 10-year can drop from, we're currently 4.25. It can drop to 3% in this next, 3, 4, 5 months. I think probably more like 5 or 6 months. But if you can move from 4.25 to 3%, that's a lot of tailwind for the
Hmm.
market. And then if I'm right at all about, second half of this year, later in the year, sometime, this thing rolling over, the market peaking, and then the economy rolling over, and it's starting to pick up speed. During the bust is when rates can fall from whether it's 2.5, 3%. When that really gets going, I think you could see a 10-year at zero. So a 0% 10-year, and again, people go, that's impossible. Who's going to buy? The Fed's going to be buying up every bond they can find to do QE of that magnitude. Institutions are going to be buying for safety and saying, we may not earn much, but we can't afford to lose, so we're going to buy treasuries. And short rates are probably going to be negative, so they'll be happy to have zero, and the 30-year might be selling at a quarter or half percent yield. But in a deflationary environment, that's money. Um, so I think the bond market that everybody's been so anxious about may finally turn the corner here pretty soon, and be part of the wind at her back.
David, there's been an idea kind of thrown around here, and obviously not officially, but an idea that if the Treasury and the Fed instituted a gold-backed bond of some sort, that would or could spur more demand for that. Do you think that that's a possibility or something that could happen?
Yeah, I struggle with the things because Trump certainly is willing to do things we've never done before,
Mm.
and they're thinking about trying to solve. They're problem solvers, I think, more than we've had in the past. So stable coin, um, gold back bond, etc. I just don't think it's you can do anything in a magnitude that's going to offset what our problem is. So
Yeah.
I think it can temporarily cause some excitement and cause things to hold up beyond what I might expect.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I think the numbers are just too huge. I mean, this has been 90 or 100 years in the making, and we're at levels where, again, this isn't the cycle where I worry about sovereign debt, but think about when the printing press goes away and most of that debt out there that we quote 330 trillion, the biggest part of that increase is sovereign debt in this cycle, certainly. Um, when they reach the point where they can't service that, there's nothing out there you can do, I don't think, to offset that kind of magnitude.
Mhm.
We throw around trillions today, but hundreds of trillions is a whole different story.